Now, the income tax bill has a new feature. It can legally hack into your personal accounts, emails, social media, you name it. On April 1st of 2026, as the next fiscal year starts, there will be a new income tax law in place. Among the much talked about simplification of language and ease of tax filing, the Income Tax Department will have the power to access digital information of individuals who they suspect of tax evasion. Well, nothing new about that, right? Not really. The taxman or woman will have to have the authority to in fact access your personal social media accounts, bank accounts, emails and other fintech or online investment platforms as well. This new feature comes under clause 247 of the new income tax bill, which gives power to the government and increases the capability of government agencies to in fact investigate deep. So what does the change in the law exactly say? Let's compare it with the existing law. Section 132 of the current Income Tax Act 1961 gives liberty to income tax officers to search and seize premises if they are under the impression that a person is trying to hide financial documents or hidden income as well. It also allows breaking locks if needed. But in changing times in traditional transactions making way for digital ones, the new income tax bill is expanding the scope for providing tax officials the power to gain entry into personal and financial data stored digitally. So which platforms and servers come under this particular new bill? Email servers, social media accounts, online banking, trading and investment platforms, website storing asset ownership details, cloud storage and remote servers, and also the digital application platforms. It basically means that if a tax official believes that someone has committed tax fraud or evasion, then they don't need that person's consent to break into these digital platforms. And who are the eligible ones to access your digital platforms? Well, the new law gives authority to tax officials, including joint directors and additional directors, joint commissioners and additional commissioners, assistant directors and deputy directors, assistant commissioners and deputy commissioner. If any of these officials suspect an individual of tax evasion or undisclosed income, then the new law gives authority to any of these officials to override digital security measure to gain access to the personal data of an individual. Now, this raises the question of breach of privacy and legal obstacles, doesn't it? That's something that perhaps could be contested under Article 21st of the Constitution of India under the fundamental right to life and personal liberty. The excessive power given to the officials do raise eyebrows when it comes to right to privacy and the possibility of misusing the power. The intent of the law may well be to catch the tax evaders. How will the government, though, ensure that it is not abused? We will leave you with that question, but we will take the chat forward with our expert joining us on the broadcast, CA Bimal Jain. He's tax expert and President CACS CMA Council, the Chamber of Trade and Industry. So thank you so much for speaking to News9. So that's the biggest question. Although you are trying to ease down the process of tax filing, but under the garb of it, there is a big question about the breach of your security, in fact, your personal details. How exactly the government is going to defend the new tax bill on that front?
Sakshi, you are right. This is creating concern in the minds of individual taxpayer. Undoubtedly. If you look at current provision, which you sounded under Section 132, during search and survey, they were having a right that they can break your Almira locker under physical, when physical access is not available. But even under current provision, we have seen, though it is not specified in the Income Tax Act, that they were asking hardware, laptop and computer, they were accessing that one, they were asking the email details, but there was no specified provision under the current law. But look at the proposed one, section clause 247, which is giving right to virtual digital space. And you rightly said so, our social media account, anything, our investment account, our bank account, our email, anything which is stored on cloud, anything which is stored on website, they have access. In case you're not giving access to them, they will override the same. So this is creating concern in the mind of every individual. My right to privacy getting hurted. I'm being protected under fundamental right to life and personal liberty under Article 21. And let me tell you, Apex Court, Honorable Supreme Court, in the case of Justice K.S. Puttaswamy, has clearly said that right to privacy should not be violated, and there should be mechanism. So we have to wait and watch. But this provisions, clause 247 under new income tax bill, yes, on one side, Honorable Finance Minister trying to provide ease of business, ITR filing getting simplified, but this kind of virtual digital space wherein they will access to our personal private data is creating concern. So to my mind, we have to wait and watch, and of course it is under discussion as on date. My suggestion from our side would be, from individual taxpayer perspective, would be that yes, it is important for the government to check tax evasion, to check any undisclosed income, asset and documents which is prone to tax evasion need to be checked out and searched. But in the name of such power, we cannot give such massive power in the hands of tax officer. Now, tax officer, you rightly picked up, starting from income tax officer, assistant commissioner, deputy commissioner, joint commissioner, joint director, additional director, so much of power to everyone in the tax department being given need to be checked. There should be safeguard and mechanism. I'm just highlighting one more concern. When India is bringing new income tax bill and they want to provide ease of business, why such provision is required? Of course, to protect and to safeguard against the tax evasion, we need certain safeguard and measures. But we have to ensure that the mass taxpayers should not be hurted. Their private data is being asked, and who will control and check what kind of data information is being asked by the income tax officer, whether those information are important or not. Go to US, if you are asking any private data, there should be judicial order, then only you can access, you can ask for the private data. If I'm keeping certain social media account which is for my personal purpose, what you are going to derive out of it, what we are perceiving, they will see my travel to out of India. They will see my expenses. They will see my marriage expenses. They will see what kind of expenses I'm incurring, whether I'm having that much of income to incur the expenditure. That is the reason this provision is being given under clause 247. But there has to be safeguard. There has to be certain mechanism where a right to privacy is going to be protected. This is what my first submission. When US is talking about, which is advanced economy, they're saying there should be judicial order whenever you're asking for the individual data. Go to European Union. In European Union, you got general data protection regulation. Under that regulation, there is safeguard and mechanism, restrictive provision. You cannot really demand from any individual unless you are having a reason to believe and concrete material in your hand that that guy is having undisclosed asset, income or document which is subject to and prone to tax evasion. Canada
Right.
is adopting the middle path. I'm saying that when India is being looked at providing ease of business, these kind of provision may come in, but with a certain safeguard and mechanism. But at the moment, private data need to be protected. That's what my submission would be.
Right. Mr. Jain, please stay on with us. That was really interesting. My colleague Kartik Malhotra is also joining us live on the broadcast. Kartik, that's quite interesting. Let's also dig deeper into the details of this clause 247. I mean, the question of consent has been tossed aside completely. Was there no other alternative to check, the hidden or maybe the tax evasions, that you have to intrude into someone's security? You have to check the social media accounts, you have to check the emails, and for God's sake, you have to check someone's cloud storage as well.
You're right, and I think, Sakshi, I can't agree more with Mr. Jain because, at one level, the government is trying to talk about building trust and transparency with the taxpayer. At another end of the spectrum, the government is trying to introduce a new income tax bill, and the income tax bill has a draconian law like this or a clause like this, which gives access to certain individuals in the tax department to go deep into any investigation and have access not just to your emails and your social media, but even email servers. So communication that you may have deleted could also be traced back from those email servers. So this is point number one. But I think this is in complete contrast to what India is trying to do with the DPDP bill, for example, where digital protection of data is something which the government has been, toying around with and has been trying to implement. where it is taking data privacy very, very seriously and institutionalizing guardrails around misuse of data. So I think this clause 247 is in complete contrast to what we are trying to do in building trust and transparency. And at the other end, building this whole ecosystem of data privacy and protection of somebody's personal data. I think Mr. Jain is absolutely right in his observation. The European and US standards, especially the GDPR in Europe, is absolutely robust. It is a mechanism which ensures that personal data will not be, played around with, will not be compromised, will not be accessible to anybody unless there is a judicial inquiry. Now, if you compare it to the old Income Tax Act of 1961, Sakshi, it did give income tax officials the power to, for example, break into lockers or access documents by force when there was a possibility or perhaps, investigation leading to a point that some income is being concealed or some tax is being evaded. Now, with pretty much all transactions around the world happening digitally, one could argue that this is in some way a sort of extension of the powers that were already there, except that the format has changed. So you're not breaking into a physical metallic safe, you're not breaking a lock. What you're breaking is a password. Instead of going into a vault, you're going into a server. So on the technicality of it, it may be viewed in the context of the intention, I would like to say, of the income tax department. That this is a natural extension where you're giving way to a traditional source of concealing income to a more modern source of concealing income. But I think the kind of powers that will now be vested in the hands of a few IT officials, we will have to ensure that there are enough guardrails that those powers are not misused or rather abused.
Definitely. Karthik, please stay on with us. Mr. Jain, coming back to you, since it looks like the imposition is inevitable, so what should people be prepared for? Because we are not only talking about the urban population, we are also talking about not so well-read population, the rural population. How exactly do they protect themselves?
My foremost suggestion first to Government of India would be there's a select committee who is reviewing this income tax bill 2025. They must look into this clause, and this clause need to be properly reworded and redrafted, ensuring that right to privacy, right to individual information need to be protected. The first one. In case they want to carry on with the provision and we want to see safeguard and mechanism, I will suggest these important pointers. Any individual taxpayer should delink their personal information versus business information. There should be delinking of same, and all their personal data should be having data authentication, two-way communication, means their password protected, encrypted, so that they would differentiate what is their personal data, what is their business data. Since this virtual digital space is also allowing bank account, investment made, undisclosed asset, undisclosed document, I'm of the view that any individual taxpayer need to safeguard that these documents are properly being protected, and as and when demanded, it can be produced before the tax authority. Of course, tax authority doing their part of checking out tax evasion, but we have to make sure that such data is properly protected. And as and when demanded, you are ready to provide them. And when they are accessing, overriding their power, entering into your social media account, entering into your, some other media platform, cloud server. Now, days are ahead. We are getting organized country, organized sector, organized system. We have to make sure that anything which is hefty here and there need to be concentrated, and there should be proper mechanism to protect the same. Here, saying so, you need
If
to
I could
identify.
just come in, Mr. Jain. Mr. Jain, if I can just come in, and I think, just for some more context for our viewers here, I think it's important to understand that there used to be, at least in the provisions of the existing Income Tax Act of 1961, there was this provision of the tax officials first issuing a show cause notice to somebody who they suspect of evading taxes. If I'm not mistaken, that was section 143A, B, etc. So there was this provision that the income tax officials will first issue a show cause notice. The redressal time, and there's a window given for those who are being investigated to come out with suitable replies to the queries being raised by the income tax department. After that, there would be meetings with income tax officers. There would be, of course, I understand all of this is becoming faceless now, but there would be a chance for the assessee to respond to the questions being posed by income tax officials. Post that, the assessees had an option to also take it up in the appellate tribunal of the income tax and appeal against orders that were potentially issued by the income tax officials. So I think while all of that physical process could be fast tracked using digital and faceless mechanisms, which the income tax is trying to the department is trying to simplify, but the problem is that with digital technologies, there is this chance of tax officials not really asking questions or giving show cause notices to assessees, but rather just snooping into their private information. And that seems to be the biggest concern at the moment. As long as the new income tax bill, whenever it becomes an act and gets implemented from presumably 1st of April next year, as long as all these steps are ensured, that all these steps are followed accurately, I don't think there should be a reason for people to worry. But I think the worry really is around institutionalizing those guardrails, that there is no snooping of private information happening by the income tax officers.
My answer that when you talked about so cause notice only comes after search and survey is being done by the income tax officer. So now this information which is being demanded under virtual digital space, it is during search and survey. Now, what point you have raised? You have rightly raised that department can issue a so-called notice. They can demand the information, details and document, whatever they are looking for. I'm not denying so, but it is all done before the issuance of so-called notice. And rightly so, that is the reason we all are talking about right to privacy. Can you access to my social media account? And that too, you will override my password and everything to get access to my social media account, my bank account, my investment account. Yes, if you want such information,
My
create
understanding,
a
it's not just
mechanism.
hacking into
Create.
your account and breaking your encryption and your password. You've got server level access, Mr. Chen. And server level access ensures that you can pretty much go into the entire history of somebody's email or social media, because as we know, nothing really gets erased from digital servers. There are always ways to get information back. So that seems to be the biggest problem in hacking, legally hacking into somebody's account, sir.
See, you are right, but look at from two-way perspective. From department perspective, whenever they want to protect, they want to control tax evasion, they need to have some kind of data access. But in the name of virtual digital space, even I'm of the opinion they are getting into individual. Now, for that reason, I'm saying that there should be safeguard mechanism whenever they are demanding any such information or overriding my password. I'm saying that such power should be given with the designated control and check. It cannot be open-ended to any
Right.
income tax officer to demand anything. Otherwise, there would be misuse of power, which is creating unease of business today. I do agree with you. But at the same time, when you look at from department perspective, government perspective, lot of tax evasion is going on. Lot of undisclosed asset which is not disclosed by the taxpayer. Lot of undisclosed income which is not reported into ITR. Of course, government needs certain wage and mechanism to get the information. And you rightly said for getting the information, there should be safeguard, there should be mechanism. Giving such open power prone to misuse of power by the income tax officer. That's what we both are saying and asking our
Right.
viewers. This is creating draconian power in the hands of income tax officer. This need to be
Absolutely.
safeguarded. That is what the proposal all about.